Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Halllgarten, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Centre for Education and Youth. And I'll be talking to you today about building an area-based approach into curriculum design. I'm currently in London, and it's actually a very grey Friday afternoon, about 4 days before you'll be hearing this presentation. And it's a real pleasure to be talking to you about this, but also it's a bit of a pain, I guess, that I won't be able to do this face to face with you. I did this with colleagues in Wales, again online, but there was a chance for interaction. On this occasion, there isn't, but I would really hope that it marks the start of a conversation between us and yourselves about what you're doing in Wales. The plans for curriculum in Wales are really bold, really ambitious. I'm sure they're very challenging for you, but I'm very keen to learn as much as I can from what you're doing after this presentation. So for this session, for the 45 minutes, I've broken it up into 5 chunks, and there will be chances for you to stop, pause, reflect, and do some writing along the way. First of all, I'll be telling you about myself and about CfEY, just so that you know the context and experience that we are bringing to bear on this. I think it's particularly important on issues around local and area-based curriculum, because it's quite a political topic, actually, possibly more than other aspects of the curriculum. Then I'll be talking about the what and the why of area-based curriculum. What is it and why we think it's important? Third, I'll be giving you some case studies, some examples of practice that we've picked up along the way. Fourth, and this will be where a chance for you really to kind of think and do some writing and do some planning, the who and the how. Who should you involve and how might you involve them in your thinking and your acting around area-based approaches to curriculum? And finally, and I hope you stay this long with this presentation, I'll be giving you some top tips, some quick ideas that we've learned along the way that might help you with your next steps around planning your curriculum. However, before I go on to this, I want to start with a question. And it's a question I've used quite often in lots of professional development I've led. I've used it with local authority directors and with teaching assistants and with really everybody in between, which is who knows you're here? And more importantly, who doesn't know you're here? I mean, here at this particular event, but should know. And it elicits all sorts of different answers. People that have gone on professional development programs, but yet their line managers don't know about it, for example. The reason I ask it for this particular presentation is because I'm hoping that during the course of the session, you'll begin to think about other people that you haven't yet involved in your curriculum design process and you should involve. And the fact that they don't know you're here is probably important, and you need to tell them that you're here, you're doing this work, and that you want to involve them. So even if you haven't got any answers yet to this question, please think about it throughout and write down people that you want to involve in your curriculum design processes as a result. The photo that you can see on this slide is by a Moroccan teacher and photographer called Hassan Belamoud. Now, he asked individual students or pairs of students to strike an interesting, unusual pose in his classroom. And then he asked the rest of the students to carry on as if nothing unusual was happening. And then he took a photo of it. Beautiful set of photos, and I think a very interesting metaphor at times for various aspects of our education system and possibly around what you're doing around curriculum at times. I hope it doesn't feel like that all the time, but at times it must do. So moving on to talking a little bit about myself and about the Centre for Education and Youth. I am a primary educator by background. I started doing 5 years in urban schools in Manchester and London. And since then, I've gone on to a variety of roles involving policy work, practical work, leading various programs, but also going back to the classroom when I can, including last year, spending half my time during COVID in a group of primary schools in Tower Hamlets. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And I've written reports about research in the teaching profession, but throughout of the work I've done, there's often been a binding theme around curriculum and the importance of curriculum design, and that not everything should be decided at the national level. That's included running a program called Grand Curriculum Designs, which I did with the RSA, leading a program called Creative Partnerships, which is all about creativity in the arts in education, and also writing some internationally focused documents about innovation in education, which had a particular focus on curriculum. I guess in this space, there's two particular beliefs I bring to this. First of all, our education system, certainly in England, but I guess in Wales, since I started teaching and finished teaching a number of years ago, have focused on becoming much more reliable, making sure that particularly our lowest performing pupils don't slip through the net. And I think we've made great strides in that, actually. I think probably we're much more focused on improving literacy and numeracy for our pupils, and some of the benefits have accrued as a result of that. But at the same time, we need to allow space within our curriculum and with our day-to-day work to make sure that we expect and we anticipate and we encourage the unpredictable, to make sure that pupils surprise us in all sorts of ways. So we need to create a curriculum that's rigid enough to be reliable in terms of what it delivers and how as an entitlement for young people, but allows genuine space for unpredictable outcomes to happen. I guess the arts is the obvious place where this happens, but hopefully it can happen throughout the curriculum. Secondly, and I guess this is why I'm so excited about what seems to be happening in Wales with curriculum, we need to value teachers as designers of learning experiences for pupils. Yes, they will be using textbooks. Yes, of course, some of the work will be mandated, and some of the work and some of the things that you'll be doing will be very much prescribed. But we need to think about teachers as designers of learning experiences for their pupils. This was an animation I made about this for the RSA. I won't show it to you now, but if you look up teachers as designers or license to create, you can find that yourselves online. So a little bit about the organisation I work for. We're a think and act tank, and we provide timely and accessible research, support and tools for policymakers, organisations and practitioners supporting young people with a number of different programmes. Most of our work is England focused. We would love to change that, and we would love to work more in Wales. All of the people we work with, it's a small organisation, are all former teachers or youth workers. And that gives a different kind of grounded perspective to what we do. We're always trying to do one of three things. First of all, try and inform policy. Secondly, try and inform debate. And thirdly, and ultimately, to try to change practice, probably the most important thing that we try to do. And we do our work in three different ways. First of all, as learning partners, we help organisations and programmes understand the impact of what they're doing and try and have an even greater impact. Secondly, as investigation partners, we explore particular issues in education. The one you can see on the screen there is around assessment, and we try to develop policy recommendations around that. And thirdly, as action partners, where we work directly with practitioners or young people to try and take innovations to scale, or sometimes to do professional development work such as this. And underpinning all our work is a vision that we believe society should ensure all children and young people receive the support they need to both have a great childhood and to make a fulfilling transition to our adulthood. But this vision is underpinned by 6 core beliefs. And the reason I'm putting them here, because actually I think they're, for me, core beliefs in terms of how curriculum change should happen as well. First of all, in terms of fair, we believe that all change efforts should attempt to have a disproportionately positive effect on the lowest attaining, the most disadvantaged, or the most marginalised young people. Secondly, that change should be empowering, that young people and the practitioners they work with are the most vital agents of change. Governments are important, but they're not the most vital. Thirdly, dialogic, that progress really comes through discourse and positive but challenging conversations. You don't get anywhere without some challenging conversations. Fourth, expansive. We need to recognise a broader set of opportunities and outcomes that young people experience and achieve. Fifth, connected, and it goes back to our vision about society. Schools can't do this alone. They cannot make change happen for young people alone. A wider ecosystem of support and connections for schools and for young people is absolutely crucial. And finally, that word agile. I think as systems, we need to be better at responding to and making the most of when stuff happens to young people. We need to create the space for that stuff happening, and it can be positive and it can be negative, to really to be understood and to be weaved into the way we work with young people. So that's enough about me and my own organisation. Let's move on to this concept of an area-based approach. What is it and why is it important? I'm going to pause now for just 2 minutes. Some of you will be in groups. I'm happy, more than happy for you to have a discussion rather than writing it down. But it'd be really interesting for you to, without me giving you any ideas, for you to give your ideas around what you think an area-based approach to curriculum design might be and why it's important. So I'll just give a couple of minutes on that. Wow, 2 minutes can be a long time when you're just staring at a screen. I know it's appropriate in terms of wait time. I think next time I might go and make myself a cup of tea. Uh, so no wrong or right answers in terms of, well, maybe some right answers in terms of what you wrote down, but it'd be interesting to compare what you wrote and what you thought about to what I'm about to present now. Uh, I will read this quote out for you because I think it sums it up very as well as I've heard from Kerry Facer working at the University of Bristol. The aim of an area-based approach to curriculum seems elegant in its simplicity: to enhance the educational experiences of young people by creating rich connections with the communities, cities, and cultures that surround them, and the "and" bit is important, by distributing the education effort across the people, organisations, and institutions of a local area. Now, we see an area-based approach about doing 3 different things, and these 3 different things are very important. My guess, and it's just a guess, is you thought mainly about the first one, not about the other 2, but I could be completely wrong. We think it helps to ensure that elements of your curriculum are deliberately, first of all, about a place, making use of the local context and resources to frame learning. Secondly, for a place, meeting the specific needs of children and local communities. And finally, with a place, designed by schools in partnership with other local stakeholders. Now, maybe you do all 3 at the same time. It may be some of what you do there is not deliberate, it's almost unconscious. And when you unpick what you're doing, you're already doing all 3 of those. But let me just take it a little bit further in terms of the understanding and the rationale, because I think the next slide really gets to the heart of the rationale of why we might be doing this. So breaking that rationale down into a little bit more detail is really important, because your emphasis on what is important will shape your approach to local curriculum design. So moving from left to right, and I would say from left to right, gets a little bit more controversial really. First of all, localities are a convenient learning resource about a place to enhance national curriculum content, to provide sustainable and accessible context for real world learning. It's easier to access than other places. If you're going to study the Romans, you might as well look at a burial site close to you than one far away from you, for example, and that communities have useful knowledges and culture to support learning. And that builds essentially engagement with your existing curriculum to some extent. Secondly, it's about recognition for a place, that students have an entitlement, and it's useful for them to know more about the locality that they live in, whether you define that locality in a few streets, a village, a town, or something beyond that. First, of an entitlement, which many families do not provide, even though that families are a part of the locality. Secondly, to create a sense of belonging and identity. Third, and importantly, for all students, but I guess especially for secondary students, to connect with local employment opportunities, and also to connect with local knowledge and culture. And I guess the focus on that goes beyond classic curriculum goals towards building attachment. And thirdly, there's a rationale in terms of rights, that localities have a democratic right to influence the curriculum. We need a democratic space to talk about the purpose of education that goes beyond what might be decided or imposed by your national government. Secondly, that as curriculum can be a resource for the community to affect social change. And third, that shared commons purpose, if you design a curriculum with a place, that will make schools more resilient in the long run, because they will have those much stronger community connections. So bear those three R's: resource, recognition, and rights. Bear those in mind as we begin to talk about the new curriculum for Wales. You are the experts on the new curriculum for Wales. I've really enjoyed dipping into the documentation to see what's relevant for this particular presentation. I have to say, I know you've got a huge challenge as head teachers and others to lead the change starting from September, but I am inspired and I'm envious about what I've read. It's very different from what's happening in England. In terms of the rationale for an area-based approach, I think it runs throughout almost everything I've read. First of all, it's fundamental to achieving the four key purposes for the curriculum and for learning for Wales. Secondly, it's very much embedded within the, how you create a vision for your own curriculum. I will read directly from the documentation here that should be an ongoing conversation for the whole school and beyond, engaging with parents and parents, carers, and the wider community, including business, academia, and public services. It should be informed by a school's location and surroundings. Third, you can see it in the design principles, again reading from the guidance. Schools and settings should co-construct their curriculum, working with learners, families, and the wider community. And finally, for ensuring whatever content that you decide to teach and deliver through your curriculum is informed by context. Again, a quote from the guidance. Practitioners' own understanding of the school's local area and awareness of the changing issues and challenges in each context will help them to be creative in embedding these contexts in learning and teaching. So if all that wasn't enough, I then came across this concept that's probably familiar to you, but I was completely unfamiliar with, of a Cynefin. I hope I've said that right. If I haven't, I can only apologise. From the Curriculum for Wales guidance. And this was both inspired, again, inspiration and envy in me. Just in case you haven't looked at it, I'm just going to give you the chance to read it now. I won't read it for you. I don't know of a curriculum document in the world that has something like this in it. So despite the challenges you have on delivering something like this, I hope you take solace in that and can feel a sense of pride in what you might be achieving or hoping to achieve through your curriculum work. I'll shut up now and let you read it. So in a year, you've finally made it to the World Cup finals again, and congratulations, all of you. I'm really looking forward to seeing you there and supporting you. What a great year to focus on this again. I'm sure you already do as schools, but to have it crystallized in this way, I think is really very important. What I really love about this is that it blends a kind of pride in Wales with a further pride and understanding in global issues as well. It's a really kind of enlightened form of patriotism, I would say, and there's so much curriculum work that can go on and that you are permitted and encouraged to do, I think, as a result of Cynefin. So I've talked a lot at you, and as I say, you are the experts, and I really want to give you a little bit of time now, either on paper or if you have, if you're lucky enough to be doing this with a colleague, to have a chat with a colleague about what you're already doing, really, around an area-based approach to curriculum. This is work you've probably already been doing for a long, long time in various forms, whether it's in subjects like the humanities or whether it's beyond. Uh, and I don't know enough about what's already happening. I wish I knew more in Wales, but I'm hoping these questions will give you a chance to talk about it, to think about what you're already doing, and then thinking about building on them. The first question is thinking back to the rationale, those three things on rights, recognition, and resource, which resonate with you, and are there any that you actually disagree with? There may be some, the rights one in particular, there may be some like that. Secondly, what are you already doing within your curriculum design for next year or delivery that is already for, about, or by your place? There'll be lots you'll be already doing, and it'd be good to know and write down that. And thirdly, when you think about the new curriculum for Wales, to what extent does the new curriculum create opportunities for a greater focus on area-based approaches, and what are the barriers to change? Now, no obligation at all, but I've put a little link in there, which you're welcome to use to jot your thoughts down. You'll find some thoughts on there from existing teachers that participated in this when I did ask similar questions in February. But I will give you a full 5 minutes to think about these questions. If you can, don't go online, don't get distracted. Just think about the rationale, what you're already doing, and where you see the curriculum for Wales fitting in with what you would like to do in this space. So I'm hoping your conversations or your notebooks are now littered with examples of things you've already doing and possibly things you think you might be able to do more of as a result of the new curriculum for Wales. Uh, I thought I'd give some examples of work I've come across and been involved with that I feel has a strong area-based approach. Uh, I'm sorry, they're all from England. Nothing I can do about that. I wish I had more from Wales. Maybe as a result of this session, I will do. I'll start with a couple of examples from secondary schools, and then I'll move to a more detailed example of something I led last year in a group of primary schools. The first one actually refers back to my thing about when stuff happens, can a curriculum have space to deal with that, embrace it? This was a thing that actually happened that wasn't particularly pleasant in a school in Waltham Forest, very close to where I live in London. Quite a long time ago now, I think more than 20 years ago, in fact. A group of children on their way to a maths GCSE class were mugged. I should say on the way to a maths GCSE exam. Actually, that's what actually happened. They were on the way to the GCSE and they were mugged. They were mugged of their phones. They were mugged of the things they needed for the exam. And as a result, a group of teachers found the time within the school curriculum, it may have been within citizenship or it may have been beyond, to actually create a whole school inquiry, just like any other public inquiry, to look at street crime in that area, collect evidence, have various hearings, and then present their findings to an actual police and crime committee within the council and have some of their recommendations listened to and enacted on. That for me is a really good example of every single aspect of the rationale for an area-based approach. You don't want these things to happen, but when they do, there is a genuine learning opportunity within them. Secondly, and much more recently, I'm not going to give a specific example, but I think the school, certainly in England, that probably does this best is a school called XP, a secondary school, and I think they've possibly have a primary now in Doncaster. They have all sorts of really radically different approaches to curriculum, to assessment, to pedagogy. But a lot of their work is based on the concept of expeditions, where it's a version of project-based learning, where different aspects of knowledge are blended towards a point where school children go on expeditions through which they create a final product, a final project that shows the results of those outcomes. Now, every single one of these, I had a brief look, and it's just worth looking at the website and looking at the bit on expeditions, has a connection, a genuine connection with their locality in some way, and often involves the support of individuals, adults and organisations within their locality to make them happen. I really strongly encourage you to look at the XP school and hopefully take inspiration from that. Finally, in terms of examples, I'll just talk a little bit about something I was doing and continue to hope to do and talk to other schools about. We'd like to get a group of schools involved in doing this elsewhere. So if you're interested, please get in touch. I was working in a multi-academy trust of 2 primary schools and a number of teaching schools in Tower Hamlets in East London. That's the playground, an area of significant poverty, right next to an area of massively significant wealth. And alongside the curriculum, the national curriculum, we had a vision for what our young people wanted to be like: loving learning, making friends, healthy and strong, and feeling part of their community. Not unusual, many schools have mission statements like this, but we noticed a gap between what our national curriculum could deliver, a subject-based approach that was pretty strong, and what types of young people we wanted to develop. We got that down to a number of dispositions that are there left in the little speech bubbles, the kind of things we really wanted our young people to develop, from curiosity, kindness, confidence and leadership. Getting them down to 9 was hard enough, but we then tried to break down those dispositions into clear steps that can be taught and modelled from nursery to year 6. So in creativity, what would we be looking for from an average nursery child compared to a year 3 child, compared to a year 6 and 11-year-old child. And we did that for every single disposition. So we began to look at what progression in each disposition would look like. That is difficult. It's done for literacy, it's done for numeracy. In terms of dispositions, it is difficult. What we created was good but imperfect, I'd say. We then, and this is where the locality came in, we then created a part of the school week, Fridays, to create a new curriculum called the Explorer curriculum, where the focus was on children using their locality to develop those dispositions. They were in mixed age groups. They were collaborating on real world challenges. They were using the local neighbourhood and other parts of London, and many pupils were given leadership responsibilities. There was no formal assessment, but we were getting kids to get meaningful feedback from a variety of adults on that work. What that looks like in reality is what we call the Letter Explorer curriculum. Here are the badges. You can see them. Every child will do one of these badges throughout, first of all, years 1 to 3, and then years 4 to 6, which will give them a range of opportunities to connect with their communities, to their localities, and the organisations within them. We also, importantly, had a pedagogy for this curriculum, which we acknowledged needed to be different from the pedagogy of a standard subject-based lesson around playful inquiry, oracy and dialogue, metacognition, reflection and feedback, and building challenges where pupils can only succeed through teamwork and independence. I'm really proud of the work that's happening there. It's still a work in progress. We can't yet talk about outcomes or impact, but I would be happy to tell you more, particularly around the local elements of this. So those are the examples I've got. I'm hoping and betting you've got better ones, but I'd love to hear them at some point. But now we're going to move on to my fourth section, which is a little bit more detail about how you might go about developing an areas-based approach, something that goes beyond what you currently do, using Roman sites to improve history, using doing geography field trips and so on. What could you do that's more than that, and how would you get there? So first of all, let's think about designing the curriculum with your locality. So that means not just thinking about locality as a resource, but actually talking to people in your locality about what your curriculum would look like. This is again a quote from the Curriculum for Wales guidance, which I will let you, actually I'll read now. Genuine co-construction is a key to curriculum development, ensuring joint ownership and improved quality approaches. This should involve learners, all practitioners, governors, parents and carers and the local community in the process of design. And that schools should ensure arrangements are in place. So in terms of consulting with your community, I just want you to spend a couple of minutes thinking about these questions. What are you already doing? Maybe you've got this. Maybe you've got this covered. If you haven't, maybe there's time to do this, not for September, but during the next year. What are you planning on doing? Are there any moments of opportunity when you could consult with the community about curriculum design? What are you avoiding doing and why? Certainly in the community I worked with last year, there were some issues with Muslim parents that were difficult. We did have dialogue with them, but they were difficult to think about whether and how we should include elements within our curriculum. Linked to that, what are the risks in co-constructing your curriculum? But also, are there local organisations or people who could support you, not in delivering, but in helping you to have a really good conversation with your community about what your curriculum should possibly involve? I again will just pause for a couple of minutes to enable you to have a chat about that. So I think the conversation about what you avoid and the risks and so on are really, really important to this, because particularly around whether and how you include controversial issues within your curriculum and whether and how you engage your community in that dialogue. So one activity I do when I do longer design work with schools on this is this activity. I'm just going to talk you through it. We won't have time to stop, I'm afraid. But it's thinking about whose curriculum is it anyway, trying to map your stakeholders, local, and think about what influence they already have and what influence they should have. Who are your local stakeholders? Parents are obvious, but can you break it down further? What about employers? What about community organisations? What about faith organisations? Do you know what they think about your curriculum? Maybe they think it's fine, but unless you ask them, they may be things they think should be included that children should learn about that are just not being included. How much influence do they have on what you teach and should have? And generally, I think if you talk to parents and others, they won't say they want influence over everything. They accept that there's a whole body of content and a body of knowledge that schools know best about what to do, what to teach and how to teach it. But are there elements where they should have a bit more traction and control? And then what could you do to bridge that? So anyone who's interested, I can provide you with a basic map to help you do that. But I think it's a really useful exercise to do. Thinking about designing a curriculum about and for your locality, here are some questions about whether your area-based approach will define you abstract concepts. I know abstract concept is an idea within the Welsh curriculum guidance. Concepts like Boyle's law or addition or the royalty. Will it help you define what new abstract concepts you need to teach? Will it inform the content through which you teach those abstract concepts? And will it create the need for learning that doesn't relate to those concepts at all? Here's another activity that can help you think about those questions. Can you map elements of your locality? Can you list and sequence any local knowledge that your students should know? And can you name key people and places and organisations that are already part of your curriculum offer in some way? And can you name those that aren't and should be? And through that, you may be able to answer some of those questions that I posed. Here are my tentative answers for you to those questions. Does your area-based approach define new abstract concepts? My guess is probably not. I could be wrong. It'd be interesting if you can think of abstract concepts that are only relevant to your locality and nowhere else. I'd love to hear them. I just can't think of any myself. Should your approach inform the context and contents through which you can teach those abstract concepts? Almost definitely. It's probably what you already are doing and hopefully can do more of. And will it create the need for learning that doesn't directly relate to the abstract concepts that are probably defined for you to some extent? And my guess is hopefully. I hope that in thinking about area-based curriculum and design, you'll be thinking about learning different skills, different knowledge, different dispositions that actually are nothing to do with the abstract concepts. And you need to create space to make sure though that learning does happen. So finally, here's some top tips of things I've noticed and have proved useful in the work I've been doing with schools on locality and curriculum. I'll go through these fairly quickly, but as always, I'm happy to chat in other ways beyond this particular presentation. First of all, embrace disagreements. Accept that genuine co-construction will create disagreements. If you're not having arguments, hopefully pleasant arguments, with people about what should be in and what shouldn't be in, you're probably not having the discussions you need to have. Secondly, use your governors as arbiters and advocates for some of those decisions. Third, follow general principles about focus, coherence, and logical sequencing. Everything you do around curriculum design applies to this element too. Fourth, think carefully about progression within this. Are your students visiting the same place twice? If so, why are they doing that? Should they be going to other places in terms of their understanding of their locality? Fifth, and this is the example of what we did within the schools in Tower Hamlets, create structured space beyond subject-based lessons to prioritise the local. Lots can happen within subject-based lessons, but there may be stuff that you need to do beyond those subject-based lessons. CICS and Cynefin enables you to do this. Connect the local with the national and the global. Generally, these things interweave in a very, very powerful way. Seventh, really important, don't force it. Locality doesn't always matter. Sometimes when you're studying geography, it's better to focus on a volcano outside of Wales. Are there any volcanoes in Wales? There possibly are. So you don't necessarily need to force it. Eighth, and this is possibly my most important tip, underplan your modules. Create space out. If you've got an 8-week term, maybe only plan a curriculum for 6 weeks and enable the local to happen outside and beyond that. Some good project-based learning takes place in this way. And finally, the design thinking processes that you've been using to shape your curriculum, use them here as well, because I think they can be very, very powerful aids to get you to a local approach. So that's it from me. I hope it's been helpful as you plan your area-based curriculum journeys. I'm very aware that it's been a presentation and a lecture rather than a conversation and a dialogue. And I'm very hopeful that some of you will get in touch to say, can you tell me more? Or I really disagree with you there. We'd love to learn more about what you're doing. We would love to find ways to work with you as well as you carry on your curriculum journey. So please get in touch any way you like, and good luck with the rest of the day. Good luck with your new curriculum from September, and possibly more important than that, have a fabulous summer break.